Hi, and welcome again. First of all, you might have already noticed the focus of my courses is a little different. It's not about visiting each and every concept and tool. I am creating these courses exclusively for you, not to pass a test or to solve someone else's data science problem in a corporate environment. It's about getting you to go, giving you the tools that you can use to explore further, so that you can develop a capability to solve data science problems, and starting with data science problems from your daily life. Why not to solve them and make use of your knowledge to live better? That's the overall framework of my courses. We will get to that, what it means and why this is important later, but let me now focus on the imminent problem. Now, when you look at the tools of web scraping, you will see that they are complex. Using Scrapy is not like using NumPy. The spider object is much more complex than the array object. That is because of the complex nature of the task, web scraping. With web scraping, you are actually going out of your computer and have to live in a world of lots of rules and protocols. So this relative complexity of web scraping tools is necessary to do the job. It is necessary to healthily send your request and enable you to receive the response you want. And that is so in every language and for every framework if you talk about web scraping. Okay? And one general recommendation as we start, although web scraping is complex, if you get lost anywhere or become hopeless, and that can happen, you should get back and have a glimpse of the big picture again and refocus. Okay? Maybe you don't have to do it, or there is an easier path that might take longer, but be it. Well, this is actually more a learning philosophy beyond web scraping and even beyond data science. Think about this, and the time will come to use it. Now at this moment, I will dig right into Scrapy. If you would benefit from a warm-up on a discussion why of web scraping and our request-response cycle of www, there are some introductory sections in my other courses. Please visit those because we will dig in. Okay, let's start. I have mentioned about the 3 pillars of web scraping in my courses. First, formulate a valid request that goes to the page you want and that will make the server respond with the valid response you want. This we called crawling. Parse the received response to extract the data you want. That we called scraping, and keeping a healthy and long-living relation with the server. Okay? Whether you're just starting web scraping or you're already an effective user, the fundamental problem for you in web scraping will be around those 3 pillars. So let's look at those closer. Okay, pillar 1, formulating a request. Let's do this right away. You successfully installed Scrapy, and if not, please refer to the official tutorial and visit this specific page on the page. Okay? And make sure you can run Scrapy in the terminal. Now, creating a spider that will crawl and parse web pages. Syntactically, that is not too hard with Scrapy. You have to create a spider, and the structured and intuitive way to do it is creating a spider within a project. A scraping project you name that will scrape the pages you want. And the creation of this project is very straightforward. It is so straightforward that you just start with a naked Scrapy command and just follow the instructions. Okay? And here is Scrapy. And Scrapy start project will clearly create a project. And here is Scrapy start project. And the usage is simple. Get to the folder you want your project folder to reside and just give your project a name. So, Scrapy start project Amazon project. And you can start your first spider with going into the project folder you just created. So change directory to Amazon project and run Scrapy Gen Spider Amazon.com. Voila! You created the spider Amazon using template basic. And how to run a spider, how to make it crawl pages. Let's go back to our Scrapy command. Scrapy, and now you're under a valid Scrapy project folder. You see you have more options to select. I will use Scrapy crawl, so let's get help on that. Scrapy crawl. I just need to enter the spider name, and it is Amazon. Okay, there are some options here, such as dumping scraped items into a file. Let's leave it as it is and see the output on this very terminal. Scrapy crawl Amazon. And there my spider is running, and that's all about it. Okay, hi, let's look at the output in the terminal. Scrapy is very generous at its standard output. It might scare, but don't. Focus on our pillars, crawl and scrape. Let's see what we have crawled and if we have scraped something. Scrapy thankfully lets us know about these two pillars right in its debug. Isn't that nice? It indeed went to Amazon.com. We did not specify any page, so by default behavior, it went for the domain's homepage. But before that, it went to fetch robots.txt file of Amazon.com. Crawling, unless stated otherwise, always starts with a request to robots.txt file of the domain. This file is like a list of welcomed guests to the page. Scrapy reads that page, and if it doesn't feel it is in the list, then Scrapy terminates itself. So Scrapy just gives up any further requests. Currently, it looks like we don't have a problem there, but our request has been redirected. The redirect response, both from robots.txt page and also the home page, arrived to Scrapy with the message to redirect. Looks like to Amazon's secure pages. Scrapy took care of it. It took care of the redirection and sent another request to the new page automatically. And there I received the HTTP response status 200. So Amazon actually did reply back, and our spider received something. So we crawled the page. So I think we did well on our first pillar. So we had a successful request and received a response. But wait a minute, we did not see the response yet. How do we know it even exists? Why am I not seeing anything on the response? Why am I not seeing that? Well, it is like declaring a variable. You did declare it, but to see it you have to produce an output. And we sure did no effort to get an output. And for keeping the connection, the third pillar, there was only one request, and it was accepted. So if done correctly, there is no more maintenance to do. So let's produce an output from the page we crawled, from the response. For this, we can't avoid to interact with the spider object. So let's find and open the spider code in an editor of your choice. Okay, where is our spider code? Remember, we had created a project. Let's go to that project folder and see where I can find the spider file. That file is my focus now, and it is within the spiders folder. Rest can stay for now. I'll be dealing with them later in other courses, right? That's what I'm doing. So open the spider in editor. So here it is. We import Scrapy, or new spider class. We'll inherit from the basic spider class of Scrapy. So we have templates. Nice. Remember, we have given the name of the spider and the domain it's going to crawl. Scrapy figured out a homepage URL to send the first request for. While I'm here, let me add the S, the secure pages S, here to take care of the redirection we experienced when we did run the spider. So now my first request will go to the secure side, and there will be no need for the domain to redirect me. Okay, one last step. Okay, let's continue from the terminal. That is all fine, but I don't see a request object created and sent. I don't see it because the basic spider class has the related method that takes care of creating and sending that request object. Let's make this request object more visible. I want to see it. Let's erase these start URLs and create a start requests function. Okay. The Scrapy basic spider object that we inherit has a start request function too. It is using this start URLs attribute. That function, start request, is using the start URLs attribute that I deleted to create and send the requests. It is run automatically when you run the spider with crawl command. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to override that start requests function or method, however you want to call it, of the basic spider and create and send the request object right here from my spider. Okay? For that, I have to define this function, this method, and I have to yield a request object from Scrapy's framework. Okay? And we almost always yield the requests, also because many times the request will not be the last line in the function. Okay? And we need to specify to which URL we're going. Let's be more specific. Let's not go to home page, that's boring. Let's go for a product page on Amazon. It's going to be a long URL about this one. And that's all about pillar 1, creating and sending a valid and worth request. Of course I have to save this. Let's save it and do one more crawl and see what we get. Will Amazon servers send us a response for this page? A response object containing the data on the page? Okay, so getting back to terminal, let's run the spider one more time with Scrapy crawl Amazon. Okay, what do we expect to see? What do we see? At 200, a relief again, so we got a response. But before that, there's now another redirect, right? It looks like Amazon server is very helpful today. The page we asked with the long URL looks like readdressed, and Amazon servers let us know the new address with a redirect code and relevant redirect address in their response they have provided. So they provide us a response with saying, okay, you have to redirect to this URL, and again, Scrapy take care of it. Scrapy middleware, a helper script that takes care of redirection, that does the job. Okay, it sends a new request to the new URL that was provided by the domain in the original response. What is this page, by the way? We haven't looked at it yet, right? Let's open it in a browser and see. Okay? Yes, who does not own a smartphone and would not change it once? Anybody? No. So, page that we would visit probably. Okay? So I'm going to copy this URL and paste now this URL to my Scrapy spider. Again, I don't want to just redirect it. I'm going to use this simpler URL. Okay? Okay, now, why am I going for this web page? I'm expecting for a response with the data I want within that response. I'm getting a valid response. That 200 tells me that. So the response arrives, but where is it? And how do I manage this second pillar, the parsing? Who think Good thing we again have a placeholder method, parse, that is run with the return response object automatically, okay? And that is done if we don't state otherwise while we're calling the request. So you can actually choose what callback function you want to run with the response. If you don't specify anything in your request here, the default running function with the response is parse function, and that is good. Okay, now it is run, so it did it, Scrapy did it, but I did actually pass, so I did nothing. This time I don't want to pass. Okay, let's output first whatever we receive as a response. Let's output the response body, the body section, and that I can do with response.body. And Scrapy wants me to output in a dictionary format, and that's something I can easily cheat here. In curly brackets, response.body. I know what will return hopefully is everything that is necessary to reproduce this home page, or this Amazon page, not the home page, this products page, okay, right? So, most probably it will be very ugly, okay? So let's see what it looks like. Run Scrapy crawl Amazon from the terminal again. Voila, the response is here. It is a beast, right? It's a beast. It is. And here it says, among everything, item scraped count is 1, and that is because we have a yield for that page in the parse function, right? We yielded something in the parse function in the callback, so we scraped something. How the heck will I find what I want from here? Where do I start? Because you know what? I don't want this big page. I want the data. How do I go to data? Okay, we are at pillar 2, the parsing. Now, what we have as response body is nothing short of all the code and data making the page that we know. It's a big document. This document is also visible from the browser. Let's talk about this so-called document, okay? The document is the back end of the page you see on the browser. It is the code, the text that make up the page, rendered by the browser. In other words, the page we are seeing in your browser is a mix of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code interpreted by your browser. That is the code as well as the data that creates the front end you can interact on the browser. Can you see this code and the data that the browser renders? Yes, every browser will show you the code and data they are rendering for you. Okay? It is in the background, and to reach that you just inspect the page. Okay? One thing we have to do at this moment, we are at parsing, pillar 2, we have to make sure that whatever we see in the browser document on the inspect page here is there in the scrape response. Is there a chance that those do not match even if I request the same page from the server? Yes. Sometimes sites are structured to just yield a compact version of the page. So you request that. The response is a compact code. It is still HTML, CSS, and the data, but also JavaScript code. And if that code is executed, it is fetching another document from the server. So if you look at the network activity, you click to the page, you look at network activity, you see another request that is called from within the document. Okay? In other words, the code that is yielded in the first request is fetching another URL. Your web browser does that, but Scrapy simply does not do that by default. Okay? It just gives you the code from the crawled URL and does not run the code. So you don't see the rest of the page that is requested and received with the second hidden request. Okay? There are solutions to that, right? You can integrate tools to your Scrapy project that render JavaScript pages. Okay? It gets the document, those tools, and runs the code for you, and you can feed the output to your Scrapy parse function. You might have heard about Selenium, or also dedicated tools like Scrapy Splash. Or you can actually go manually to see what other page the JavaScript code is calling, and create and send a request object directly for that specific URL. Okay? And this manual method is faster and less prone to errors, because you do not have to render and wait for a page to load fully in a browser, a headless browser, or your Scrapy Splash terminal or port. So especially in the learning phase, I would highly recommend to go manually, to look for manually, okay? Because you then learn how to interact with the page, the network activity. You learn it as a pro, okay? And the more you explore the site and its backend, the better you get at web scraping. That is so much in general, and also for the specific site you are crawling. For the specific page, you have to know that page from tip to toe, okay? Okay, let's assume we received a response, and the response in Scrapy nicely includes the data we want, just like the exact web page rendered in the browser. Now, I won't scrape the whole page, right? That doesn't make any sense to scrape response.body. Just a selected portion, article names, prices, links, images that are worth extracting as data. Okay, that's what I want. Here, you need to know a little bit, just a little bit of HTML and CSS. Not to write or interpret code, it's about the syntax, the hierarchy of the elements within the document, within this HTML document, okay? And as I say, this document is made of hierarchical elements. If this is an HTML element, and it is, this is the parent element. And if this is the element, then this element will be, guess what, the child element. And everything hierarchically below is called descendants. Okay? You just have to chain these elements in a fashion to reflect offspring's relation between elements. Okay? And the data we want is in most cases in the text within that element, or the value of an attribute of an element. Let me give a generic example that will come into play pretty soon. It's very generic. Look at the screen now. Okay, I made a hierarchical structure, an HTML structure with elements. Something that you will probably see in the skeleton of a document. And I will give you some keys, and I will request you to find the chain of elements to get to the data or to the objective. Okay? Here's the key. You go to the child element or attribute with a slash, just like going to a child folder from within another folder. And you go to the descendants, to the whole descendants, with double slash. Note that. Your position is annotated with a dot, current position. Assume text of an element is extracted via text call, like a function call. An attribute is selected via add attribute. Okay, so how do you locate the text of both divs, divisions? Well, dot slash div. From current position I go to next div, child div, and I get the text of it. I can even go for double slash, because I can get the text of all the divs, descendant divs, and their text of it. How about the text of the span elements here? Okay, if I go for more generic, find the span element and get the text of all those span elements. Now, how about the value of the href attribute of an element, of an A anchor element? You could say from current position go to child div, child span, child anchor, and extract the href of it, that attribute. Or you can simply simplify if you know that all the anchor elements, the A elements, when the whole document from wherever you are is what you want, then you can just do that. Okay? Now finally, let me show you how you would get to each and every descendant A tag. Okay? And extract only the ones if the value of the href is specific value A. And that's done within brackets. Okay? You just get all the anchor elements with that specific anchor elements with href equals value A. That's it. Okay, now we have feel on how that selection, this hierarchical selection, that structure might unfold. The small exercise is not too different from what we'll actually be doing, okay? And there are several language tools to express these relations, to be able to navigate around this big document and reach your destination element where your data lies as an attribute or as a text. CSS syntax can do that. You might also have heard of XPath to parse HTML documents. Yes. Good thing is both with XPath and CSS you can pinpoint to every part of the HTML document that you have received as response. Because the response object that is awaiting your manipulations in the parse function kindly accepts both CSS and XPath methods. So response.css, response.xpath. So let's parse it. Enough talk. As I said, we will have to pinpoint to the exact position of the data we want. To find those elements we care, we will probably have to experiment, right? That's another thing, because it's not always the first time you find the expression. So to find those elements, we probably, like in the generic case, we'll write some expressions, we'll test those. Okay? And there are again several strategies to test your expressions. You can do this in the Scrapy shell environment, but I will show a different one, a longer but more intuitive way. I will first find the data on the browser, that inspect page on the background. Then I will copy the relevant portion of the document, maybe a few more parent elements from the exact location of the data, so I have a bigger background to select. Okay, in other words, this portion I will copy will include the respective element and will also include its parents. I will open a notebook. Then I will import Scrapy and create a Scrapy selector object which can be used just like the response object we have ready in the parse function for Spider. And the key is, if I find the right expression to extract the data in the notebook, the only thing I have to do is to copy that expression to Scrapy. Because if Scrapy has the same response, it can extract the same data from the same structure. Okay, let's try that. Okay, here is what I'm going to do. Currently, this is the status of my Spider. I am just parsing the response body, so I'm getting the whole big ugly document. My intent now is to get the exact data that I want from the page. I have to parse it. Okay, we call that scraping. First, I have to find the data on the browser. So let's go to browser, and in the browser find something that we would consider data, like the price maybe, like the let's go for the names of the phones. Okay, so right click and inspect. see in what portion they are. Okay, these titles are hidden in here. They are in a span with class this here. The class here is of 3 items, so there are 3 classes actually that is applying to the span element. So I have to find the span element, but are there only the names of the phones with this class, with these 3 classes? And I can check this. I just copied it and pasted it to search, and I found 24 matches. When I go down lower, what I'm finding is each and every case here. Look, it is the title, it's the phone name. So I might be good to go, but the thing I want to check here only is, yes, it's here, how many phones I have here. And when I check this, I see there are 24 in total. So 24 phones and 24 spans with this class name. So I think this will work. Okay, let me see what I need to do next. I found the browser data. Now I'm gonna copy that portion with its background. So that span with its parent elements, I will copy those. Okay, let me go back to here. Let's go view up in the descendants of Spring scheme. So let's copy from here, all HTML, copied it. What I'm gonna do with this copy, I'm gonna create a selector object in the notebook, Jupyter notebook. So I'm gonna go to notebook, and I'm gonna make a selector object using Scrapy selector object. Okay, selector class. So let me go and open a terminal right here in my project folder. Okay, and open any Python 3 file. I already have it ready, so let's import Scrapy here. Okay, now I'm going to copy what I had, okay, that chunk of data, that chunk of the document that includes my data, into notebook. Okay, can't do like that. I gotta do triple quotes. Okay, and there is my text. Now I'm going to use my selector object. Okay, and I'm going to call it again response, and response is scrapy.selector, and selector accepts a text, and here my text is the text. So what the selector does is it creates a selector object now from my text. Okay, see, this is a selector object, just like the one I have in my Scrapy output in the parse function. Okay, now I'm going to use response.xpath. Okay, if you would recall, now selector object is created. I will find the expression in notebook. Where is my, yes, here is the slide. Remember how I was locating each and every element, right? Here, for example, all the anchor elements with href attribute of value a. What I'm going to do is very similar. I will go to each descendant with a span, and this here will be a class. Okay, very similar structure that is done in XPath. So response.xpath, let me open the parentheses, let me open a code, a single code, and // for all the descendants from the current location. I want to span, okay, open the curly brackets, I want the class value to be equal to, now I got to open a double quote, and sorry, I'm not going to paste this, I'm going to paste that here. Okay, let's go here. Where is it again? Yes. And paste it right here. This was an extra. So the class is going to be this threefold class. Hey, I selected it. The only thing I will add is to go for the text of it. Right? And I also had that, remember, to go for the text. You have this text function. And that's it. Here, the only difference is I'm going to use the extract method of the response.expand. Okay? See what it comes? Okay, there's a problem. And the problem is here. I think it's here. Yes, I forgot the double quote. Try that. And here, voila. Here is the one name, one phone title that I want to get. What I'm going to do now, I'm almost there. I found my expression. I'm going to copy that to Scrapy. Copy that to my spider, actually. Okay, let's copy this. And let's get to my spider. And instead of response.body, I want to extract all the spans with class this. And I'll get text of it. I'm going to extract. Extract will yield a list of all the possible responses that correspond to my selection. Okay? I'm going to save it now. And I'm going to go to here because I'm going to crawl now. And I hope I will get my results. So Scrapy, crawl, Amazon. Let's see what we get. Keep the fingers crossed. 200 is okay. Well, I got a 200. That is nice, but look at my response. I did not get nothing. So, am I not getting the same results? The same page in my Scrapy output, in my response? Okay, where am I now? You know what? I did crawl with a good request. I did parse the data. I have a framework now. I can ask the right questions if I am stuck, and I can understand the answers that I receive from Stack Overflow or if I read a response. Okay? So, what about pillar 3? Maintaining the connection. You can also say managing the connection, keeping it alive. Here's the interesting part. This is the part which will need work, especially if you scale up your spiders. And also as the data gets more sensitive. Simply put, you will be rejected. Or the server will just not respond. Or will respond with something but the page. The first thing I would say is not to wake up the beast. Or in other words, be gentle to the site you're crawling. So stay low profile. Scrape slow and just enough, not more. For this third pillar, let's manage some of the basic settings to have a good starting point. Okay? For that, let's go to the settings file of the spider. Okay. Now let's go to settings file. Where is the settings file? The settings file is in our project folder. And we are now in our project folder. So let's go in and find our settings file right here below. Okay. So let's double click it and see our settings file. This settings file contains the settings to my spider. Okay. And I can change them here. And there are some basic things that I will do that will help your scraping. Actually, these are things that you probably have to do or think about as you're just running your spider. Remember the last time when we scraped, we found the XPath expression, right? We found how to crawl at pillar 2, but we didn't get any answer, any result from our scraping. What can be the problem? The problem can be here. For example, let's go into settings and these are related to pillar 3 and pillar 2 together. Remember, we had this robots.txt file visited. Yes, we had visited it. And it's again here, the txt file. It talks about user agents. For example, this here, for all user agents, these extensions in the page are not allowed. Okay? If you're a Googlebot here, then there are some others that are not good for you. And if you are a spider, then there's a bigger problem. You are not allowed at all if you are identified as a tail spider. Okay? Currently, actually, we are okay in the sense that we get a 200, but are we getting the result we want? Can it be connected to the user agent parameter? Maybe yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to uncomment the user agent, and a user agent I will just put a simple Mozilla. Okay? Yeah. Active as if I'm from Mozilla. Okay, that's what I'm going to save it. And if you want to go more formally, you can actually go to your inspect page, go to network activities, and maybe refresh once more, because now you're going to see your user agent of the browser. Okay, that's what I want to show you. And here, if you go down in the headers, and yes, here is your user agent. Okay, what I have done is I just get Mozilla, and let's see how it reacts, how Amazon domain reacts to my user agent. Let's see that. Maybe we can solve the issue. So, user agent Mozilla uncommented, saved, and now I'm going to crawl again. Last time, I didn't have any response. This time, when I run this, 200 in the robots.txt file, so I'm not prohibited, and voila, here are my results. So, I keep saying, and I will be saying, that you got to know the inner mechanics of scraping. This is just the basics. We will go much deeper in the next courses, but when you go deeper, you'll see things like, hey, I have done my right expression. How I can't scrape it? Well, am I wrong on my XPath expression? So you will start tweaking your XPath. In fact, it was correct. In fact, you were not getting the response that you needed to get. Remember, the first thing I said we have to make sure is the response we receive in Scrapy is the same as the response in the browser. Okay? So, user agent, very important. Now, robots.txt file obey. Well, this is for a middleware, robots.txt middleware or for Scrapy Spider. It checks, it goes to this robots.txt file and checks if it's a good guest, if it's an allowed guest in the list, and it terminates if it doesn't find itself there. So you know what? This is just for our own, our own business. So they're not doing anything. The domain does not do anything. It's about the spider proacting as a result. Okay. So if you say true, then you will obey that list. If you say false, you just go ahead for the website for the link you want, but then, of course, the site has some rules, and if it finds out what the problem is, it will still ban you. Okay? So keep it as true if there's not a problem. And the last thing I want to show at this moment is about auto throttling. Okay? auto-throttling. The one thing we'll talk about is how you will have to, with the spider, you'll have to go slower because it's really very fast. So one thing to do is to look at how the site sources are, how it responds to each request. So one good way to do it is let Scrapy figure out how fast, how slow, how frequent it will gonna go to make its choices to scraping. Okay, I also uncommented auto-throttling, so I'm gonna save it. Again, these are first 3 rules: user agent robot60 file and auto-throttling. Just you can do in every start of your scraper. So you start a spider, think about this tree, and then go ahead and crawl and scrape. So get the request and parse response, and then look what you're getting, and then you can tweak these and much more. Okay, I saved it. Now I'm going to go to terminal, do one more scraping, and now I'm Mozilla again, and now I again get my result here. Okay, now we have a basic sense of the 3 pillars. Now don't underestimate these 3 pillars. You might be a starter now or later when you become more proficient. The things you will deal with is around these 3 pillars. You have to find the page, the request, okay? You have to parse it. Maybe that will be the most easy part. And you will have to maintain a connection. Now, what I provided does not solve every problem, but as I say, you can now ask the right questions and understand, hopefully, the responses. From now on, I would say, do some real-life projects that will interest you so that you can gain some depth and not just look away to getting more breadth with new tools, Splash, Selenium and everything. Let them on standby. It will come the time. Try to get more feel on the web page, on how to go to the right page, how to parse the right sections. And for this, let me give you some more recommendations. And hopefully that will be helpful to you in the future. Now, I will start with pillar 1. I would say, think about these, what I say. If it doesn't make sense now, hopefully it will. At least you'll be in a position to question what I tell, and that will be a good exercise too, okay? First of everything, correctly define your problem. Will the data you're about to collect solve the problem you have? Or can you refine your data requirements? Now it all starts here, so you better be right in this level. Okay? Don't skip this part. Very important. Am I on the right website? What a weird question. Of course I'm on the right website. Think again. Could you possibly get the same information from another page? Think about our Amazon example. Well, as you see, it's not easy to scrape Amazon, but can I scrape Amazon prices from another page that I could scrape more easily? And the related question is to ask, am I on the right URL? So I might be in the right domain, but am I right on the page? Am I on the right URL? Yes, of course, that's the products page I want to visit. Are you sure? Is there another link, maybe simpler, without the extra, codes and, every other thing in the big URL? An easier link that is more robust? And for Amazon case, trust me, there probably is. Because we were redirected, but sometimes you don't get redirected. You can reach a page from several URLs. Okay? Again, several links might point to the same page, same data. You may actually find a simpler link for the same page, a link that is also more general to be found, thus means a more natural way to visit that page. Why is this so important? Not only because you can form the link easier, the URL, and reproduce the pages easier, because those sites, those domains actually use several cues to identify humans and bots. And the specific link you want to access might increase the chances you're detected as a bot. That can happen, okay, from the choice of your URL. Okay, what about pillar 2? What can we say about that? I think it's the easiest, well, maybe better said, most straightforward pillar to deal with. If the data is there on the document, you will eventually find a way to extract. It can go up to using regular expressions to pinpoint the data, but you will eventually do it. So make sure the scrape response and response in the background in the browser match. If they match, you will find a way to extract the data. One thing to keep in mind as you are trying out your expressions, there might be several places that you can extract the data on the same page. Remember, in pillar 1, we talked about how different URLs point to the same page, and sometimes parallel to that, you can find the same information in different places in a document. And some places of the document, some instances of the data you want might be easier to extract. That's, I think, probably the one thing I want to say here. Okay? Then, pillar 3, keeping the connection. Well, it's the most interesting point, probably, yes, as with pillar 1. But I say this, initially, don't worry about this. Focus on the first 2. You will make your way through this third pillar as time progresses. There is no prescribed rules on this, okay? You will actually experience these connections problems, and I would say no need to focus on this again. You will say, hey, there are many good reads on this. Yes, there are, but they're only good, not very good. Because the connection problems you will face once more, yes, they can be generalized, but in fact, they are very site-specific. And so are the solutions. Okay? In other words, you can get guidelines on this, but how you apply those and if they will be effective will be very site-dependent. Here is a general rule for you. Sites, they don't like scrapers. They want to isolate scrapers, but at the same time, they don't want to affect the regular user. So they will not question you with a CAPTCHA immediately in the first sign of a scraper. Because if you're not a scraper, you will not like solving CAPTCHAs in every visit to a page, right? So your overall aim in this effort, pillar 3, should be scrape with a human pattern as much as possible. Your scrape speed, your handling of cookies, the number of simultaneous requests, the time interval between requests, the map you go scraping different URLs from URL to URL, okay? They reveal your identity, okay? And let me say one thing on this before I close this. Another perspective, I would say, then you will probably get easy elsewhere. And hopefully that will make sense to you. Now the scraping issue is something where you need patience, okay? It's not like you run it and you get your array. You have to wait. You might do it overnight, not a problem. The thing is getting to data, okay? So the timing of it, unless you do some very time-sensitive, analysis, is not important, okay? Here is what I say. You will get detected by Amazon sooner or later. What if, rather than using your whole energy on not being detected, you try to get as much as you can until you get detected? In this effort, using summary pages instead of the product details pages will help. Sometimes there are options to select, let's say, items per page, get the highest number on this. Okay? Doing this, you can get more data with less requests and in much less time. And all this while keeping a low profile with your reduced number of requests. That's good. Now, you got detected and refused by the site. Well, you can always come back later, because most probably they will not, prohibit your entry or getting in for a long time, I would say. Okay? So, avoid the beast. Keep this in mind. Avoid the beast instead of fighting the beast. And if it awakens, why not to stand still until it falls asleep again? This might feel a little bit, fade away for you, but think about this and this will help you very much. Don't fight the beast. Okay, we're approaching the end. Let's talk about what we did. You know what? It was actually a refined course, so I will not go to each pillar what we did, but we have a basic sense of crawling the page, scraping the page, and how to keep the connection alive. And we now have a way to ask good questions and receive and understand the answer we want. And that was the aim for this course. Okay? And let's say go for takeaways, and the one thing I want to say here is, and please keep that in mind, every site is different and their reactions are different, and there's always room to play. So if you ask me, the most important thing you can do to scrape successfully, it is the time to spend on the site to really see where you can scrape what and how to do it effectively, how to exploit this site structure and its reactions to different request schemes. And a very important note on this, there is no such course that would cover all capabilities and solve all the negative possibilities that you can encounter. If someone claims that, that is not true. And there are infinite many possibilities on this. You should strive for a very strong foundation in the concept as well as your tool of choice. And then for our case, the tool is Scrapy, so get stronger on Scrapy, on the basics of it, how it unfolds, the architecture. Okay? Focus on that. Do that. Okay? Build on your basic skills on this framework. Understand it as much as you can. This will make you not only solve indigenous problems, but build real web scraping muscles. Let me give an example what I mean. You will hear about JavaScript heavy pages. You can overcome them with Scrapy, Splash, write few lines of code, and you're good to go. Or you can get to the back end, get the painful root. Look for what is happening and exploit the site structure to go for the exact page or the JSON data that the JavaScript actually was rendering or was trying to render. You do it manually and you find it. I mentioned this in the lecture, and in fact there is a real life example on this in my project course. Why this way? It's like learning to drive a car in a manual shift car. You have to know the engine RPM, the sweet spots, sports drive, etc. If you learn to drive in an auto car, you actually will not need those. You'll still be driving a car, and you don't have to know anything about how the system works at all. Ignorance is bliss until the time comes. So, again, try to gain deepness on this, try to do some real life projects, and I have a good one for you, hopefully to follow on this. Okay? And when you feel better on this, go for the script architecture class, and you can even go up to doing your own middleware. Again, it's not about solving what exactly that middleware does or what exactly the problem was, but about understanding how it interacts, everything interacts. So when a new problem arrives, you can actually talk about it and solve it on your own. Okay, so you will get deeper on this. You will see everything on a real life project with my project course. And then you can interact with architecture, and you can even do your own middlewares. Okay, that's the way to go. See you there.